Or though is, so my data, do I have my data?
You ain't got no data.
I did have my data.
No data.
Well, it says here that countries with the best educational systems per 2021 best countries report, as you can imagine, what do you think was at the top?
China.
No.
Japan.
No.
It ain't the United States.
It is. And then the United Kingdom, followed by Germany, Canada, France. This is what they say.
I should have known Germany.
I looked up the biggest issue in education today. Obviously, there are a lot, but per the publicschoolreview.com, they say that deficits in government funding for schools. Funding is always an issue for schools and is, in fact, one of the biggest issues facing the American public education system today. For more than 90% of K through 12 schools, funding comes from state and local governments. I also saw data that shared that 90% of kids receive their education from public schools. So those, what do you call it? Montessori schools, private schools, all of that makes up like 10%. Most kids go and get their schooling from public schools. So it just begs the question as to if that's going to be the case. And if you're going to make a kid stay in school, for most cases, it's going to be 16 or 17 before they can realistically drop out. So if they're going to be in school for this long of a period, I don't know. I guess the question then is, if a kid doesn't really want to be there, if they already kind of they know what they want to do with their life, essentially, they're like, I want to be a welder or whatever, then why don't we just the other debate is kind of shoot them on to that path and kind of prep them early for their trade and then send them packing. So I don't know if at 14, the kid is kind of having D's and F's or whatever, just getting passed by. They're not really taking in a lot of information. Why force them essentially to struggle through 2, 3, 4 more years whenever you can kind of fast track them, get them in their welding program and learning whatever they're supposed to learn. And then they might even be able to go forth and conquer much sooner than 17 or 18. Some kids, I feel like all kids are going to graduate at 17, at least 17 and beyond. Some kids graduate at 18, but what I'm saying, the earliest for most kids is going to be, age 17. So that's another debate. It's kind of fast tracking those kids and getting them on to wherever they need to go so they can be productive citizens instead of forcing them and hunting them down. Now, of course, that's not going to be a lot of kids per school. But when you think about it worldwide or in the United States, that probably is a lot of kids who are who are just kind of there. I have another kid.
That's a lot of students are just
I have another kid. They have a 1 point GP. I have plenty of kids with 1.2 points and stuff.
Yeah.
And this kid's just kind of, skipping, hanging out. And I'm just like, so let's talk about why you're here. And let's talk about all that. And they're like, oh, I'm just here. Not going to graduate. It's a slim chance they're going to graduate because they'll probably age out. And the kids who receive public special education, they normally have until 21 to complete high school. But even taking that into consideration, there are still kids, even ones that I work with, who are still not going to complete their studies technically before age 21. So they're not on track for 17, 18, 19, 20, or 20. I have another kid not even on track to graduate at 21, So if you're not going to graduate high school by 21, and then it kind of begs the question as to, what, at their current rate, what is the reason for them even being there? Because they do end up a disruption because they're not doing their work. They're probably displaying some disruptive behaviors, and it's just making it harder on teachers. Of course, I definitely looked up a lot of the struggles that teachers think that they are facing because they're on the front lines, of course. And obviously a lot of them report negative, disruptive behaviors, kind of preventing them from doing their instruction and teaching and instructing because they are having to redirect this kid and, provide all of these different emotional, social, and behavioral supports as opposed to just actually teaching, which of course, any adult, if you're working with kids, you're going to have to provide some type of support, emotionally, behaviorally, what I'm saying? That's just how it works with kids. But lots of teachers are reporting that they're having to spend their whole class time, they feel like mitigating issues. So those are the facts and the data that I was able to come up with regarding the public education system. So I think it's probably safe to say that many people, except for people who don't work in public education, I feel like the average adult who has no knowledge of what's really happening, maybe their kid is doing okay in school, they're probably not going to really be aware of the issues. But I feel like it's probably safe to say that there are a lot of issues plaguing the public education system, and it just seems to be getting worse. So I think it's safe to say that, yes, the public education system is on the struggle bus. What do you say?
I say I just got lost in your 20-minute rant.
You're lost?
Yes. I don't know. I just started zoning out in that whole 20. You know, you've been talking for 20 minutes.
I do not.
Yeah, that was a long time. All right, so you said funding was one of the reasons why education was messing up. I feel like there's problems I feel like the education system could be fixed before you get to funding. Like, there's other issues. Like, what does funding provide?
Well, jobs.
Like why? All right, so
books, paper, supports, resources.
There's already books that are there. There's already paper. I mean, I feel like the whole learning, like the reason why kids aren't graduating or making the grades or making the effort to learn, I don't think funding has a lot to do with that. I mean, I know you get newer books and newer supplies, but I mean, you can still learn with the older books. I mean, because at one point.
So, what do you think the issue is?
It's definitely coming from. I feel like the students just aren't motivated to learn. It's like they don't care. But that could be coming from their household. It could be from their parents, their living situation, their home situation. That could be a reason why they're not motivated. Or it could just be they might have a problem with a teacher or something.
So how does that have to do with the public school system then?
What do you mean? That's the public school system.
If they have issues at home, what's that have to do with the public school system?
It's part of the school system.
How?
Because, the schools, I mean, it's a whole, everybody works together for the students to succeed. So the school, the students, the teachers, the parents, they all have to work together, hand in hand.
So what do you suggest? Well, okay, so then tell me one change.
I can't do nothing about parents parenting.
So then how is that a public school system problem?
Because you're still sending your kid to the public school system.
Because teachers still have to deal
with the kids who, they're coming home. They're coming to school from a household who doesn't place a priority on education. So those are the students that are just there.
So is that a public school problem, or is that a parental problem?
It's probably a parental problem.
So what I'm saying is that
the parents probably are messing up the education system.
So what I'm hearing folks say, because everybody says that, or a lot of people say that, but what I'm hearing is everybody's like, the parents need to do this and blah 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 blah. That could be the case.
That's part of it.
So, but then the question is the public school system really struggling as much as the children's and their behaviors and the lack of parental involvement and accountability and all of that?
Well, let's see. Say the students' behavior and lack of wanting to learn is stressing teachers out because they actually want to teach students, but that's kind of hard if you're trying to tell somebody something and they're not listening and they're off in their own world. So the teachers are leaving. So now the school system has to work harder or lower their standards to hire more teachers, because you can't just have a school with no teachers. So they're just taking any and everybody, and those any and everybody might not have the student's best interest at hand. They just want a job. And
so I'm hearing two things. What I'm hearing you say is that if no kids had any behavior problems, then the school system would be fine. Waking up, going to teach every day with not a single behavior problem in sight.
I actually think so, yes.
Okay, I'm hearing you.
And if they're actually making an effort.
Meaning that's technically not the school system's fault.
What?
because if you're saying if every kid showed up with superb behavior, listening and paying attention, and just required the little ones maybe, hey, come line up, all right, quiet in the hallway, few directions, it would be pleasant.
Yes.
So then that means that the school isn't accountable for that.
So the teachers would stay there and they would,
So that then it's not a school problem with that issue.
I guess not.
Because the school is never going to be able to fix
how somebody parents their child.
10 out of the 20 kids may be having behavior problems. So then let's not hold the school system accountable. I'm also hearing what you say then is the same would be true if you took all the elitist kids and you put them in a classroom, in a school of their own, then that would be like the preferred place to be. Because, so it's the same thing, which means
or not necessarily the preferred place, but I feel like teaching the elitists would probably be easy. That it probably would be preferred because it would be easier because they pick up on things quicker. The intermediate wouldn't be terrible because those students are still trying to learn. It's just, it takes a little bit more.
So, as a kid who did elitist schoolwork in high school or whatever, I literally don't remember, like, the teachers these days, they raise their voices, they yell, and do all these different things. And I literally, we were talking about this before, I don't think I've ever heard a teacher raise their voice. Like, I remember my teachers we walk in, we sit down, this is what we're doing. They go through the lesson. They ask people raise their hand, and then they read, and we do the whole lesson, and then boom, we go on to the next one. And that's how we did our day. Like, I don't remember kids in any of my cream of crop classes.
Disruptions or anything.
I don't remember any of that taking place.
I think I remember the teacher yelled maybe like 1 or 2 times.
In fact, my teachers actually looked like they were I have a social study. Like, I can name you chemistry, social studies, English language. Like, these folks literally were having the time of their lives. Like, you could just see how excited they were to teach, which is different from college. Because when I did go to college, I feel like the professors definitely weren't as eager as my high school or middle school. Yeah, which is fine. Whatever. Who cares? But, I mean...
No,
whatever. But I can say, because that's not the public education system, so... you get what you get and you don't throw a fit whenever you're trying to obtain this higher education, I guess. That's just what you sign up for. But yeah, I don't remember all that. I don't know if a fight ever broke out in any of my classes. Like, I cannot tell. I literally went to school, went to breakfast, went to class, sat down. We got our instruction, went to the next class, and we did that up until school's out. And then we went on, or whatever the case is. So what I'm hearing folks say then is that the behavior problems that the kids are exhibiting is running away teachers, which then means that there are teacher shortages and school staff shortages. And then that's kind of what's messing with the public school system, because the teachers who are there may be frustrated and or fleeing, and there's shortages, so they're stressed, maybe have to take on more work, but it's not so much.
More responsibility.
The issue in and of itself.
And stuff,
No. So that's what I try to decipher, is that anytime anybody's complaining about the kids' behaviors, which is rightfully so, but what I'm hearing, but my question,
you don't really want to complain or blame it on the kids or anything like that, but I feel like it is what it is.